Good evening. This is United Medical ACO Diabetes Program. My name is Kemal Erkan. I'm the chairman of the group. Our Wednesday wellness webinar is twice a month and second and fourth week of every month. And that's where we are again today with you guys. I have Donna Gunkel, one of our directors, and Caroline Weber. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then we'll start our presentation.
All right, thank you, Kemal. Yes, my name is Donna Gunkel, and I'm the Director of Clinical Integration here at United Medical. So I oversee the clinical programs, including the diabetes program.
My name is Caroline Weber. I'm one of the dietitians on staff, so we work with clients to help achieve their health goals.
All right. So as I said, this is our twice a month event. The second, the fourth Wednesday of each month, we have our support group activity. And then the second Wednesday of each month is the actual clinical presentation. So today we are going to discuss the navigating meals with diabetes, and we are going to give you some examples. Caroline is going to help us with that. But before we start with that, I want to make sure that everyone knows that our program director is Dr. Ripple from First Aid Endo. We also have a physical therapist on board, Tim McCoo, and also two social workers, one Roxana Partlock, and then we also have Carla Williams on our staff. So with that, we are gonna have Caroline tell us how to navigate meals. All right, Caroline, you're on.
So one of the biggest questions I get and I hear very often is help. I don't know what to eat. And that comes with people who maybe have pre-diabetes. It might come with people who are newly diagnosed with diabetes, or even just regular clients who just need some guidance on how to prepare a well-balanced meal. It's a totally valid question, especially if you're navigating the world of learning all things diabetes, because you want to include all the right things and you don't want to cause a blood sugar spike. So what do we choose? I also get asked the question, can't you just come to my house and make all my meals? And while that would be fun, it's definitely not realistic. So instead, we work on meal planning together. So planning meals can be beneficial because it allows us to be prepared going in to a meal to make more nutritious choices, especially when we have a time crunch. I know a lot of us have busy schedules, so planning meals helps us feel more prepared. Also helps us to kind of tweak some ingredients to maybe make them more health beneficial. So since I can't come into everyone's house and walk them through a meal, I thought we'd share some good favorite recipes to kind of do some key reminders and some key ingredients to use as we prepare our meals. So I'm going to walk through breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even dessert. So we'll start off with breakfast. So I have a question. In your opinion, is breakfast the most important meal of the day?
So you're asking this to us, right?
I'm asking you guys.
Do you want like the honest answer, or do you want me to fake it?
I prefer honesty.
So no, I don't believe this because I do actually do the intermittent diet most of the weekdays. I try to skip breakfast, although these days I start doing some eggs. But no, personally, I don't believe that. But of course, I'm not the expert here.
Okay, Donna, what do you think?
For me personally, I think it's important because it makes me feel better if I eat something in the morning. Now, I don't like to eat first thing. I like to be up for a few hours actually before I eat, but then I need to eat soon thereafter, or I feel, I don't know, I feel a little sluggish. So it really helps me to have the energy, I think, and to not feel as hungry later in the day.
Yeah, that both good answers, because I hear both often. In my professional opinion, I think all meals are equally important, right? So I don't think it's the most important, but I wouldn't recommend someone with diabetes to skip breakfast. We'd want to make sure we include that, just because blood sugars are well managed when we have constant nutrients going into our body. But it is the most common meal that I've found that people skip, mostly because we're all on the go. It's hard to find something quick and easy to incorporate. Do either of you find anything difficult if you're having breakfast to try to get it during the week? Is there something difficult about making a well-rounded breakfast?
Go ahead.
I'm pretty consistent, and I have for a couple of years. I do the overnight oats. So I make overnight oats for my husband and I do 3 days at a time. So I make them Sunday night for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then on Wednesday night, I make them for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it's just something I enjoy. And then I usually have like a piece of fruit or something with it. But that's usually what I have during the week and at least one day on the weekend.
Gotcha. Kemal, did you have anything to add?
Well, like when I'm usually Monday through Friday is not a problem. But when I'm actually visiting, especially when I'm with my mom, the traditional Turkish breakfast is a lot of different things that they have, like eggs and as well as like tomatoes, cucumber, green pepper, honey, and those types of stuff. And it's like a full breakfast. She sometimes insists on, trying all of those. And I don't know, because she doesn't speak English, so I can actually say this. It does work better for whatever reason. So when I'm in Turkey in 2 weeks, I usually I lose weight when I come back. So, and one of the things that I do consistently is I have breakfast because that's kind of like my socializing with her in the morning. The rest of the day I'm going to be in the office. So that's one thing that I see that's being different. But when I'm here most of the time, then just whatever it is, usually it's something simple, something straightforward, something that's not going to make my stomach upset. Those are the choices that we go. But both Donna and I, we don't have diabetes again, so anything that we are saying is not an example for any of our patients.
Right.
However, simple stuff that makes it a little bit easier with the busy schedule.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what at least patients that I talk to are looking for, something simple, something quick. A lot of the time I hear, well, I'm not a breakfast person. I'm not used to eating, especially if you don't want to eat right when you wake up, right? Your stomach might be a little unsettled. So we can head back to the PowerPoint and go to the next slide. So kind of getting to the breakfast basics. We want to make sure that if we're, including a breakfast, we want to have a carbohydrate, a healthy fat, and a protein. So those are our 3 macronutrients, all play a role in an important, well-rounded meal. So carbs, right? We know with diabetes, they make our blood sugars go up, but we can still include them in a good way. It really comes down to the type and how much. So with the type, we really want to focus on whole grains or something really rich in fiber, which if you go back to last month's wellness webinar, we went through tons of good things that fiber does. But it's really going to make you feel fuller longer, going to help control a blood sugar spike. So it's really going to give you a nice gradual rise instead of a good jump. So sticking to whole grains or fiber-filled foods. And then how much? We want to make sure we watch a portion size. So maybe not a whole stack of pancakes. That might not be the best option to control some good blood sugars, but focusing on portion sizing and pairing it with other things like healthy fats and proteins. So healthy fats, they give us energy, they keep us full. So just what you want in the morning. You want something maybe lighter on the lighter side, but something to keep you full through the day so you're not feeling hungry an hour or two later. And it also helps the fatty acids help, prevent cardiovascular disease. It does a whole bunch of good health benefits. And then we know protein, when we pair it with a carbohydrate, it prevents that spike in blood sugar as well because it slows down our digestion. So that's really the 3 components we're looking for in a good, well-rounded breakfast. So if you want to go to the next slide, what kind of meal can we include that might, one, give us a fast meal during the morning? Maybe we can do a meal prep, gives us good protein and all of those good components. I chose an egg muffin, mostly because I like quick and easy in the morning, and a good source of protein. So I really liked this recipe because you can do variations. You can add different types of vegetables in it. There's capabilities of adding sides, which we'll talk about. It's pretty easy because you can store it in the refrigerator for up to a week, freeze it and microwave it, and it's pretty ready on the go. And you can create probably like 12 to 24 at a time based on if you have muffin pans that size. So if you go into the next slide, we have the little nutrition panel for it. So as you can see, it's only about 50 calories, right? So you would think that's probably not enough to fill my stomach, and serving size is 1 muffin. And just because it says it's 1 muffin, that's the serving size, does not mean you have to have 1 muffin. We want to make sure you're full and that you have a good, well-rounded breakfast. So maybe we bump it to 2 muffins. Maybe we have 100 calories of muffins, but then you're still hungry. So what can we add to this breakfast to make it more filling? Usually we like to stick more towards the whole grains like we were talking about, but you could also have a fruit. So maybe you like that sweetness in the morning. Maybe you go for a side of berries because they're lower in sugar and you're watching the carbs in your full meal. Or maybe we're going to add an avocado on the side to help with that fullness. You could even add, an avocado and some fruit because you don't really have a carb component in this meal. So we want to make sure, those taking insulin are eating a good source of carb with their breakfast. But, maybe those who are trying to cut down on the carbs could focus just on the muffin. So this is why I love this recipe, because it's so versatile. You could use it, prepare it, share it with family, and really customize it to yourself. So my question for both of you is, do you have anything you'd like to add on the side to your breakfasts? I know, Donna, you said you add some berries to your
sometimes I add them in, but usually I just have like a piece of fruit on the side. I'll have a banana, or I'll have some, it depends what I have. Sometimes, I am a little partial to the berries. So I like blackberries and raspberries and things like that. So I do like that. But I have a quick question. So the muffins you showed, are those the mini muffins, or are those the full
those are regular? Yeah, those are the full cup muffins, because you want to use, you're basically putting, I think the recipe said like is a tablespoon, or a good amount of veggies you're putting into each one, because then you're going to mix it up and pour them in, bake them. So yeah, it's a full size muffin. Okay. So you think like
it's hard to tell with a picture, so I thought to let people know, because the picture looks a little small and they're probably thinking, geez, that's like 2 bites. So
exactly
in the perspective that it's the size of like a cupcake, you know what I mean, I think helps make it a little better.
I think this picture earlier, this one,
the first one is a little better.
Yeah.
So is that good, Donna? Just the portion of
making me hungry.
There are even better ones to come. We can just go into the next slide. So that was breakfast. There are tons of options to go for breakfast. This was the one I chose. You could research tons of different types, but making sure you always go back. You have a protein, you have a carb, then you pair a healthy fat with it. You can't really go wrong with that when you're thinking of like whole grains and your healthy fats, and then adding a protein to that. You'll see pretty much the same progression as we go through the rest of the meals, but lunch. So a lot of the times people vary. It's a hit or miss for everybody. Usually we have some people who are very busy. They don't have time to make lunch. Maybe we'll get stuck eating out because we didn't prep ahead of time. So that's why I really, really focus on encouraging bringing a healthy lunch from home, or prepping something ahead of time, either leftovers from dinner the night before, so that you're kind of ready to go into the day. It's a little handy to help you make some better choices when you're in your busy day schedule. So some key components for a balanced lunch. We saw protein, carb, healthy fat equals satiety, which means we will stay fuller for longer, because it takes our body so much longer to break down all 3 of those, rather than just 1 or 2. You could even stick with 2 of them, and it would be better than just 1. So maybe a protein and carb, maybe we'll skip the healthy fat, but you could have all 3 of them in a meal and it would be very balanced. I like this little snack plate on the page because it looks like most of my lunches. So you got, you have protein in the peanut butter and the nuts, you have some vegetables and some carbs in the fruit and the crackers. You're balancing all of those 3 things. But you can also include a vegetable where you can. Vegetables don't impact our blood sugar, except for corn, peas, and potatoes. But the non-starchy vegetables won't really play a big role in any blood sugar spikes. So you can really beef up the volume of your meal without impacting your blood sugar. And then we go into whole grains. Fiber keeps us fuller longer, so you really can't go wrong with, a couple full grain crackers. Maybe you have peanut butter toast on a whole grain piece of bread. That's really going to help slow down a blood sugar spike if you're going for those heavy fiber items. And a question for you all: do you find yourself going for a smaller lunch or a bigger lunch?
Well, if I have to have lunch, I go smaller. I try to go smaller. Donna?
Yeah, usually, I again, with the consistency, for the longest time over a year, I was having like a salad every day, and then I kind of got burnt out with a salad. So I'm trying to have more variety, but I do enjoy a salad with lunch. I do think if you put a lot of vegetables on there, like you said, some nuts, things like that, it does give you a little bit of that crunch. So sometimes I just use the very plain, like sunflower seeds, things like that. Other times I'll do like cottage cheese with some fruit, and then I'll put like a few Triscuits on there so that I have, again, some greens with it as well.
Yeah, that's great. Usually you get either or, people who really like the big lunch. Usually, I know where at my previous experience with an older population, they love the big lunch. That's their biggest meal of the day. But sometimes you find clients who really love those really small, like a salad, or maybe that snack plate is more their style. So it really leaves lunch open to an open interpretation. So light lunches leaves room for maybe some small snacks during the day, which isn't a bad thing if we're choosing, a protein and carbohydrate combination with diabetes. We actually encourage small frequent meals to help control those blood sugars. But say you prefer a big lunch, and that's okay. We just make sure we balance out those carbs when we're building that lunch, so we don't overdo it.
Is the most important part for that lunch is it the protein, or like, just to kind of make it a little bit simpler for someone like me? Are you suggesting that they have to have some protein even if they're having a salad, right?
I would always recommend having a protein, because it's going to help you keep full longer. Because if you would just eat a salad, you might get hungry. Like I had a salad today for lunch, and I didn't have any protein in it. I was hungry within the hour. So to prevent that excess snacking, maybe getting overly hungry and eating something else, you'd be better off just adding a protein to kind of balance out, make sure you're feeling full. So I would say always start with finding that protein that you're going to use for your meal, and then moving from that.
And you could add the protein into your salad, right? You could have some chicken that was left over from the night before. Or sometimes people cook a lot of chicken ahead, and then, like you said, meal prep, and they'll have the like the piece of chicken with veggies for one lunch, and then have like chicken on the salad, just so you're utilizing the protein, but you're having it in different ways to have different meals throughout the week.
To keep it interesting too. Even if you didn't prep anything, a quick can of beans to kind of sprinkle over the salad, or some nuts, or even if you just like get a tablespoon of peanut butter and that's your protein because it's a busy day, that's okay. But making sure you kind of include that aspect in your lunch. So I think we're ready to see what we're having for lunch. Avocado tuna salad. So not everyone's a tuna fan, so I like this because it can be versatile. You can use chicken. So it just depends what your preference is. But I love this because it's super easy. It takes very little prep time. It's something you might have in your cabinet that you could pull out, mix up. You don't even need to add the avocado. You could mix a lower fat mayonnaise in. You could stick with the avocado. But I love it because you have that healthy fat aspect as well, mixed with a really good protein source that's going to keep you full. So you can really add more vegetables into it. It's heart healthy. It's not really going to impact that blood sugar too much because you don't have a heavy carbohydrate, accompanying it. But if you go to the next slide, we'll see how can we make this balanced. Is there something else we can add to it? Because, sometimes I just don't want a bowl of tuna fish, and sometimes I don't want a bowl of chicken salad. So it's really trying to find what's a good match, a good friend to go with it. So you could choose, a whole grain wrap. I know they have really great carb steady wraps out there that are whole grain and lower in carbs. There's whole grain bread. You could choose some little Triscuit or whole grain crackers with some good fiber content. If you wanted to make a bowl out of it, you could even add some vegetables, brown rice, quinoa, Or I love this picture of the wrap because I totally eat that any day. You just kind of mix in your vegetables. You're knocking out a serving of vegetables and whole grains mixed with your great source of protein. So I think this is a really good encompassing lunch example that we could use. You could even add a side of fruit if you wanted, instead of having another carb source from like a grain. So that is lunch. And now we move on to dinner. Building a balanced plate. So dinner, you kind of run into some struggles. Do you guys have any kind of issues when you're thinking about dinners? Do you guys plan out dinners for the week?
Not for the whole, no.
Is it kind of just whatever you find? Sure, we'll work with that.
Well, I think my meals are pretty straightforward, simple stuff. Except Fridays, usually I go for sushi, but the rest of the time it's similar stuff that's just cycling. Trying to not to complicate it too much. But I think that's just me. But I think Donna does mix it a little bit more than I do.
Well, and I think like maybe some people, I think some of our meals are different based on the season, right? Because in the summer we tend to grill more, and maybe, you know, the spring when it's starting to get nicer. So in grilling weather, we do tend to grill. I mean, I do like shrimp kebabs. We do a lot of chicken. We do, like tonight we had hamburgers. Try to get a fish in there at least once a week. So, you know, like a tuna steak we had the other night, or a salmon. So I do try to do that. Now in the winter, I don't typically do that. I think in the winter, I feel like it's more crock pot meals, or it's like casseroles or something like that, because you're cooking inside. So, or my husband has really enjoyed using the Instapot in the winter. So he does a lot of like chili and stews and soups. So again, I think there is variety, but it does seem to be seasonal.
Yeah, and seasonal shopping is better for the budget and better tasting too. So shopping for vegetables in season, much better tasting than, you know, strawberry in January.
Right.
But overall, I think dinner comes, you know, it comes with some challenges for most people, even coming from families. A lot of the time, maybe only one person in the family has diabetes and they don't want to cook for multiple people in the home or make a separate meal for themselves. So it's like, I can't eat anything my family's eating. What do I make? So you want to find something that everybody loves, but also making sure that, you know, patients are aware of, you know, my portion size, and I can eat what they can eat, but, you know, we choose certain things over others to make sure that our blood sugars are in control. So I know meal planning can be a struggle, especially for families too, because you have a busy schedule. You're not always in the mood for things. So I always recommend, you know, make a list of like at least 2 to 3 meals and have those for one day in the week. It doesn't have to be an assigned day. You could say, I'm in the mood for this meal. And then you actually have a kind of game plan going into the meal. So a lot of the time, you know, if you need something quick and you just grab something and throw it together, it might not be the best choice. And that's okay sometimes, but we want to make sure that we have consistency. So
there are lots of things that I'm trying to do is like not to have it too late.
Yeah.
So like that's you know, whatever I'm eating, I'm trying to finish it before 8. Well, except maybe today because you don't see it, but behind this iPad I have my food here. What I'm sharing, I'm eating. So, but like I think when I eat late, that actually is one of the struggles that I have. That's never good for me, at least. And I know most people try to do that as well. Now, you know, I have to kind of like really see how my mom is doing because for a while, sure, diabetes was not really well controlled until we understood what she was going through. So then we kind of helped her and then tried to monitor what she's doing. And then, like, especially when I'm visiting her, like sometimes like we may have dinner a little bit later than normal time, and then we try to tell her that she has to eat before, without waiting for us, so that way at least she can get it early enough. So that's one of the things that I try to also kind of pay attention to.
Yeah, especially because when you eat late, you're not moving your body as much. So if you ate something that was, you know, heavy carbohydrate and made your blood sugar go up, you don't have as much time to kind of, you know, move around, to go for a walk, drink some more water to kind of bring it back down. So, and definitely sometimes when we eat later at night, we're more drawn to that salty, sweet stuff. I know I definitely am. So you're trying to limit. The time frame isn't a bad thing. So yeah, it could definitely help, and also helps with some, if you have a heavy meal sitting in your stomach late at night, it might not sit well overnight too.
So what are we having for dinner? Let's see.
All right, so go back one slide for me. Just want to make sure I touch on this because this comes more in handy with dinner than I think it does lunch. It could definitely look like your lunch too. But building a balanced plate. So we talked about, the 3 macronutrients, including all 3 of those creates good fullness levels. But like, how do you build a plate that is well balanced? Usually we use the myplate model in all of our counseling, right? So you have a plate and it's split straight in half, and you have half a plate of vegetables. So that, without using a measuring tool, if you don't have one or you don't really want to, count it all, you can just say half of my plate is going to be vegetables. And that's a really good way to portion size out, because those vegetables aren't really going to touch that blood sugar, and it's only going to give you benefit of fiber, vitamins and minerals, keeping you full. So a good way is, cup your hands together, and that's the size, of the amount of vegetables you can have together. You could always have more if you wanted to. And then your protein, usually the 3 ounces is the palm of your hand. Sometimes it's bigger depending on the meat cut. But then you also have the size of your fist, and that would be your portion of grains, carbohydrates. And so this is just a good visual tool to use if you're just staring at a plate, you don't have time to measure it out, you're just kind of scooping. So making sure you have, including a vegetable, a protein, those healthy fats, thrown into there, cooking with oil, and then a small carbohydrate portion, because that carb is it's your main source of energy, your main source of brain power that your body uses in metabolism. So we want to incorporate some, but we want to incorporate the right kinds and and a good amount of it at one time. So for dinner, we are making pasta. We're making pasta. So yes, pasta can be included with diabetes. It's just, we're going to focus on a different kind of pasta this time. And we're going to focus on a portion size as well. So pasta can be incorporated into all healthy diets, right? We don't want it every day, but we can have it if we really do love pasta, because I know being an Italian, I could not live without my pasta. So there are some things to note. This pasta is a chickpea pasta, right? It is full of protein. So it's created with more fiber, more protein. You could also use a whole wheat pasta, which would give you all that fiber. So this pasta is not kind of like white and refined, which usually makes the blood sugars spike. It's got a little more health benefit than your average pasta. So it could be a good substitute. The texture is actually pretty good. Whole wheat gets a little more grainy, but the chickpea or even a red lentil pasta is great. There's a few brands out there, Banza and I think Barilla, sell these types of pastas. So I like this because it incorporates, some good oils, it incorporates good spices, it's flavorful, and it's got a lot of vegetable components in it as well. Usually when we're, cooking pasta, we want to make sure that we have a good serving size. So about 1/3 of a cup is 15 grams of carbohydrates. So if, you talk to your dietitian or your doctor and they give you a certain carb range for your meal, 1/3 of a cup is only a 15-gram serving. So you might be able to up that a little bit based on what you discuss with your doctor, your dietitian on your carb range and what to stick with. And usually we say, 30 for women, 30, 45 grams of carb per meal. So you could technically have 2/3 a cup of pasta, still be in your good carb range. You're getting fiber, you're getting your vegetables. You could even add your protein. So this has protein in the noodle itself. So think about 10 to 13 grams per, you can actually go to the next slide. I think it actually says how much protein is in there. Oh, it's really small. Can you see the protein?
15 grams.
15 grams. So that's a really good amount just for not having meat in there. But you could throw some chicken in there. You could throw some ground turkey burger in there, and that would, take it above and beyond for protein. So this is when you're focusing. Sometimes our meals are based around a carb. Sometimes it just happens. If you're cooking for a family, it's easier to find that carb and build off that. So if you're focusing and building your meal off a carb, focus on that portion size like we just talked about, that 1/3 of a cup cooked pasta. It differs for rice, but you can look on the back of the package, look at the grams of carb per serving and kind of even it out. How much should you be having at your meal? Pump up the protein and vegetables. So maybe you're used to having a whole plate of pasta and it's kind of sad to look at your 2/3 cup. So add more veggies, add more protein, make it a bigger bowl, but adding the stuff that's not going to affect your blood sugar and that's going to be keeping you fuller for longer. And then search for that whole grain option or high fiber as well. So that is our dinner. For dessert, yes, we can have desserts. We can eat our dessert too. So dessert can be incorporated with diabetes or pre-diabetes. If you're watching weight, if you're watching blood sugar, can all be incorporated. But we incorporate it in a good way, right? We're not going to overdo it. But there's some things to remember when we're incorporating dessert. Portion size matters. So eating a whole tub of ice cream is not recommended, but we can have it in good serving sizes. Protein. If you are going to have, ice cream, you make that choice, you're going to have ice cream, right? Maybe pair it with some nuts because that ice cream is going to impact your blood sugar, but maybe you're going to pair it with a side of nuts to kind of combat that rise a little bit more. So drink some water, go for a walk, because how to lower those blood sugars, but you're still going to let yourself, indulge in something every once in a while because you love that food. So that's okay.
I have a little like a side kick here, like maybe. So, and if it's not okay, you can tell me. So, I think I do crave for like ice cream a lot. So I can eat ice cream all day long. So, one solution that I have is so that's why I turned my camera off earlier. So, this guy is really good. So this is. Magic bullet. So it's a mixer. Yeah. So now, usually what I do when I have that craving for ice cream, so this is not a Greek yogurt, this is a Turkish yogurt. So,
ooh. Awesome.
Well, so that's I just did that earlier. So and I put blueberries.
Oh yeah.
So, and then some ice, and then once you mix it, this does it for me. So it's it gives me almost 85% of the ice cream does as far as the satisfaction goes. So, and I think it's like healthier for our patients as well as for us as well. So, I just wanted to share that this is kind of like really helping when you have those heavy, like, okay, I really want to have big dessert or I want to have ice cream. So this becomes more like this is a plain yogurt. I don't use anything with the flavor. So, it works for me. So hopefully others can try as well.
Yeah, I like that because especially if like, your favorite food, like, the food you're drawn to and you're not very good at portion sizing, that you could definitely eat more of and get a bunch of more nutritional benefits than you could with ice cream. It also goes completely also in the other direction. It really just depends on the individual. Sometimes, subbing foods all the time doesn't work with someone's way of food preferences. And so like, I always use this example, like if you wanted like a small ice cream sandwich or say you subbed it for, low fat Cool Whip with a graham cracker, right? You eat that low fat Cool Whip with a graham cracker and you're like, okay. And then like 2 hours later, you're searching for something else, right? You're going for something else because you weren't satisfied. So you almost would have been better if you would have, had the ice cream sandwich, just like, a small little sliver of that. And then your brain would have done it. But it depends on the person. So I've seen definitely your side, absolutely, because that's a great healthy choice. You have really good nutritional protein benefits that you have great calcium benefits. But then I also work with some people too, who are like, what? I didn't snack afterward and I felt fine and we watched sugars. So it really is, it goes both ways. So it's really fun to see the different perspectives too.
You have a better example here, right? So you want me to share the screen? You want me to go back?
Oh yeah, it's totally fine. Yes, so we did a healthy sub for these desserts. So that's why it was great that you mentioned that. I love this recipe. I'll talk about this recipe forever. It's on my waiting room page. We made it for the office. It goes over really well. The great thing about this is like, obviously, regular brownie is going to taste different. It is. So you can't eat this thinking it's going to taste like a regular brownie because it's different. And that's okay that it's different. But it's got maybe more nutritional benefit than a regular brownie does. And it might not raise that blood sugar. So if you're kind of looking for you know, a good chocolate, you need something chocolate, and you like to indulge in dessert often, then maybe finding a healthy switch like this would be a good option. So this has black bean brownies. It's got, you know, dark chocolate in it. You can sub stevia, so it wouldn't, you know, increase that blood sugar as much as, you know, a honey or a maple syrup would. And it actually comes out tasting very fudgy. So the thing that's fantastic about these brownies is they're high in protein per serving. They have whole grains. The rolled oats are ground up into them. And they have fiber. So they have all the good things that help slow down digestion. So instead of, you know, eating a simple carb or refined carb, like, you know, a cookie or a brownie or, you know, ice cream, this would slow down that digestion. So you still get a good chocolate fix. You can still indulge in, you know, having some dark chocolate, but it's not going to really impact to the same degree that another dessert would do. So remembering our portion size, right? We don't eat the whole pan of brownies, but, you know, a good serving size, splitting that up and sharing it with others. Remembering to check your blood sugar often. So making sure after you eat dessert, you know, it's going to, no matter what dessert it is, it's going to probably increase your blood sugar because it has carbs. So making sure you keep track of your blood sugar, knowing when it does, maybe adding some more protein on the side if you need to, drinking some water. But yeah, so that's what, I know, Donna, you've tried these brownies before, right?
I know. Did you see me? I was like, yes. And they really are very good. I know the first time you brought them in, I didn't know until after I ate it.
No.
It was, you know, so I ate it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these are really good. You're right. It did have a slightly different texture, but it wasn't dry. They were very
kind of fudgy. It's like more of a fudgy instead of a cake.
Which I like those better anyway, personally. So if you like the fudgy better than the more like the cake, I think people will like it. But as you remember, the whole department just went crazy and liked it better than regular brownies. So
yeah, I brought in regular brownies, and I brought in both of these brownies, and the black bean brownies were gone before the regular, and then it became like a birthday request, like bring in the black bean brownies. So it's fun. It's fun. Not that you always have to do a healthy version, right? But you might enjoy that better, and it might get that craving taken care of, right? But if it doesn't, we know we can continue to work on portion sizing and things. But knowing that there's options out there that you can, you know, indulge in often, or more frequently than you would with, you know, regular desserts, and get some more nutritional benefit from a good food and have it actually taste good. So we don't want
How did I miss this? Like, you guys shared food and stuff, and then I don't remember.
This was years ago, though.
Yeah, this was a few years ago. Kemal, they probably didn't make it past about like 30 minutes.
Yeah, they were gone pretty fast.
Why?
Pretty fast. You have to, if anybody takes this recipe, I would double it because it makes like an 8x8 or 9x9. So if you want it to be thick and large, make sure you double the recipe. But that about wraps up for, you know, all of our meals. Obviously, there are snacks you can incorporate, and these are just, you know, snippets of good recipes you might want to try that might be beneficial. But there are tons out there. I know the ADA, Academy of Diabetes, you know, they have great recipes. Actually, some of these are from there, and they have great resources to kind of get you started on finding a well-rounded recipe with, you know, all the components that we talked about. So going on to our last slide, you know, meal planning, it can help us portion size and prevent overeating. So if there's time, you find a chance to meal plan, it's at least maybe 1 or 2, or maybe focusing on breakfast 1 week. It can help us control those portion size, and then in turn help control those blood sugars. So we can decrease stress surrounding meals, because sometimes, you know, for the new diagnosis, or maybe you're trying to get started on your health journey, it can be frustrating because you're like, I have no idea, there's 3 meals a day, what am I going to eat? And it's just quick and easy things for my busy life. So trying to find those meal plans, incorporating 1 meal at a time, can really help decrease stress surrounding eating and meals. And when you don't know where to start, you know, like we talked about, pick a protein, add a vegetable to half your plate, and choose a whole grain or fiber-filled carbohydrate. And you really can't go wrong with those 3, making sure you have all 3. Do you guys have any questions, any comments about?
You have something, because you mentioned the decreased stress surround eating. and I take it from a different, maybe I see it from a different perspective as we do a lot of case conferences on a daily basis. One common issue with patients with diabetes is the depression, anxiety, and in some cases, handling that stress, especially when we are trying to tell them, okay, decrease your stress while you are eating or surrounding eating, the issues that we have to address, the anxiety and depression, and they need to check with their primary care physicians so that they get the proper support. Taking medication, if they are taking medication, taking that medication on a regular schedule is really important. We see in many cases patients are given anxiety medication and they take them as they wish. That's my mom's style too. So then she changes her frequency, and I know that many patients are going through the same, like they're doing the same thing or they're going through the same issue. So in order to decrease that stress, we need to address the depression and anxiety, which is mainly the part of the issue from the uncontrolled diabetes. So we want to make sure that patients are addressing those with their primary care physicians.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
And I just have two quick things. So one, I think, is to be open-minded about trying some different things just because you've never had it. So trying the black bean brownies versus the regular brownies, trying the yogurt with the fruit and the ice, because, you know, it's still a frozen, right? A frozen dessert. Being willing to try those things, I think, is also part of it, you know, open-mindedness. And then the second thing is we do have a lot of resources on our webpage. So we have quick tips that talk about meal planning, you know, meal prep, shopping on a budget. We have a lot of quick tips out there. We also have a lot of handouts that also add some additional things, like they have lists, and Kemal's going to go there to show us. So it's our umusa.net. And if you go under the patient tab and then wellness programs, and under diabetes, all right. So, I need to make a change there, I see. But if we go down, you'll see the educational handouts. So we have a lot of things out there. We have all of our videos, our quick tip videos, and then handouts. There's a lot of handouts that have things like 100-calorie snacks. They have additional things that show you maybe not a full recipe like Caroline did here, but we list a lot of things that help you. I can have a whole cup of this. I can have a half a cup of that. You know, different things that will help you start to build, like you said, your snacks, your meals, just to help you out.
Yeah.
Anything you guys would like to add before we close?
I think that's all I had.
Caroline, thank you so much. This was really, I think it's practical, efficient in a way that patients are able to follow these things very easily, and you made it very efficient. You presented very efficiently. It helps to better understand. Don and I, we actually participate in these. In some cases, we are kind of like, we are part of it, but we may not listen to the whole thing so carefully. Every time it still happens in a way that every time we still learn new stuff. And that does help. And hoping that patients can take advantage of these sessions. The nutrition visits are extremely important, and we make this part of our accountable care organization. So we know that this is one of the biggest support the patient can get from us. And you guys are doing an amazing job in terms of supporting our patients. And we do want to take the opportunity to thank you guys for that as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So we'll see you in 2 weeks then.
All right. Have a great evening.
Right.